Have you ever felt like you're living the same year over and over? Like no matter what changes you try to make, the patterns, the mistakes, the frustrations, they all keep coming back? You're not imagining it. You're caught in a loop. I call it the loop of assumption. Every year, every month, every day, you act on a set of unconscious assumptions about yourself, others, and the world. These assumptions are so automatic, so deeply wired, that your brain doesn't even notice it's repeating them. Yet they dictate your results, your relationships, and your opportunities. Here's the shocking truth. It's not your circumstances that are keeping you stuck. It's your expectations. Your mind is constantly testing reality against your internal beliefs. It asks, "Is this what I expect?" And if the answer is yes, your brain doesn't even try to create something new. It settles into the familiar, even if that familiar is frustrating, unfulfilling, or painful. The loop of assumption is why promotions slip by, why relationships stay the same, why goals stall. You are unknowingly programming the universe to deliver exactly what you already assume will happen. And because assumptions are invisible, most people keep blaming external factors while repeating the same year, the same story, again and again. This audiobook will teach you how to break free. You'll learn to identify the hidden assumptions that shape your reality, confront the patterns that trap you, and consciously choose new beliefs that produce entirely different outcomes. The year doesn't repeat. You do. And once you understand the mechanics of the loop of assumption, you can finally step into a life that feels truly new, every day, every year. Chapter 1. The Phantom of Déjà Vu. You are standing on the precipice of what you call the future. The calendar changes, and the world celebrates the idea of a fresh start. But listen closely to the silence after the celebration fades. There is a familiarity there that is almost unsettling. It is the phantom of déjà vu. You have walked this path before. You have made these exact promises to yourself in a different room, wearing different clothes, but feeling this exact same desperation for change. It feels like you are moving forward because the days are passing, but deep down you suspect that you are actually walking in a perfect circle. This is the trap of linear time. You assume that time automatically heals or changes you. You assume that distance from a problem means you have solved it. But you have not solved it. You have merely buried it under a layer of days and weeks. The reason you keep repeating the same year is not because you lack discipline or motivation. It is because you are trapped in a loop of assumption. You react to new challenges with the exact same emotional software you used 5 years ago. You interpret every new event through the lens of old biases. The faces around you might change, and the job title might change, but the script in your head remains untouched. As long as that script remains the same, the outcome will always be identical. You are not living a new year. You are replaying an old recording. You are the architect of a prison built from your own repeated reactions. To break out, you must first admit that you are not moving forward at all. You are simply spinning. It is time to stop the tape and look at the mechanism beneath your life. Chapter 2. The Costume Change. You stand before the mirror on the 1st of January. You look into your own eyes and you make a silent vow. You tell yourself that this time it is going to be different. You look at the calendar and you see a blank page. It feels like fresh snow that has not yet been trampled by muddy boots. You feel a surge of optimism. You believe that because the date has changed, the story has changed. But let us fast forward. Move the clock ahead by 6 weeks. It is now the middle of February. The snow is melted and gray. The optimism has evaporated. You are sitting at a new desk, in a new office, or perhaps you are having dinner with a new partner. On the surface, everything looks different. The walls are a different color. The names of the people around you have changed. The view from the window is unfamiliar. Yet if you close your eyes and pay attention to the tightening in your chest, you realize something terrifying. You feel exactly the same way you felt last year, and the year before that. The names change, the locations change, but the emotional flavor of your life remains stubbornly identical. This is the great deception of linear time. We are taught to view our lives as a straight line moving forward from birth to death. We believe that movement through space and time equals progress. We think that if we leave a bad relationship or quit a toxic job, we have escaped the problem. But we often fail to realize that we have packed the problem in our suitcase and brought it with us. Think of your life as a stage play. Chapter 1 was the realization that you have seen this scene before. Chapter 2 is understanding how the trick is performed. It is a costume change. Imagine an actor rushing backstage between scenes. They throw off the heavy velvet robes of a king and put on the rags of a beggar. They rush back onto the stage. They look different. The audience sees a different character. But the actor is the same person underneath. They have the same voice. They have the same habits. They have the same nervous tic in their left eye. You are doing the same thing with your reality. You change the costumes of your life. You get a new job title. You move to a new city. You buy new clothes. You change the external variables, and you call it a fresh start. But you have not changed the internal script. The script is your assumption. It is the silent expectation you carry into every room. It is the prediction engine in your brain that is addicted to familiarity. The human mind prioritizes safety over happiness, and to the primitive parts of your brain, safety simply means predicting what comes next. Even if the future is painful, your mind prefers it to be predictable. So, you walk into a new relationship with the unconscious assumption of betrayal. You scan for signs of rejection, because rejection is what you know. You interpret a delayed text message or a silent gaze through the lens of your past history. You project the old script onto the new actor. Eventually, the new actor begins to recite the old lines, not because they wanted to, but because you handed them the script the moment you met them. You reacted to them as if they were already your enemy, and in doing so, you created the conflict you were trying to escape. This is why you keep repeating the same year. You are trapped in a loop of assumption. You assume the world is a certain way, and your actions force the world to comply with that assumption. You leave a controlling boss, only to find that your new boss seems to control you just as much. Is it bad luck? Is it a cosmic curse? No. It is simply that you walk into the office with the posture of a victim. You signal your submission before a word is spoken. You create the dynamic you fear. The costume change fools us because it requires effort. Moving houses takes work. Finding a new partner takes courage. We mistake this physical exertion for internal change. We think that because we are tired from moving boxes, we must have moved forward in life. But distance is not the same as development. You can fly halfway across the world, but if your internal emotional baseline is set to anxiety, you will find things to be anxious about on a tropical beach, just as easily as you found them in a crowded city. The backdrop changes, but the play remains a tragedy, because the protagonist has not learned the lesson. To break the loop, you must stop looking at the calendar and start looking at the script. You must stop believing that a new year brings a new you. It does not. Only a new perspective brings a new you. You must refuse to put on the old costume. You must walk into the new moment without the armor of the past. We will explore how to burn that script in the chapters to follow. But for now, simply observe the repetition. Notice the costume change. Catch yourself expecting the old hurt to arrive in the new package. If you wish to follow this narrative through to its conclusion and understand how to finally exit the stage, I invite you to subscribe to this channel. Join us as we dismantle the illusion of time and learn to write a new role. Chapter 3. The Script of Old Wounds. You are walking through a life that feels remarkably like a hallway of mirrors. You turn a corner expecting a new vista, only to find yourself staring at a reflection you have seen 1,000 times before. In the previous chapter, we discussed the costume change. We acknowledged how the people and the scenery in your life shift and evolve. Yet the fundamental drama remains stuck in a persistent rhythm. Now we must examine the document you are holding in your hands. It is invisible to the eye, but heavy on the spirit. It is the script of old wounds. Imagine for a moment that you are an actor on a stage. The lights are bright and the audience is hushed. You believe you are improvising. You believe that every word you speak is a spontaneous reaction to the moment in front of you. You feel free. But you are not free. If you look closely at the mechanics of your own reactions, you will realize you are reading lines that were written years ago. This is the loop of assumption. The loop begins not with what happens to you, but with how you define what happens to you. An event occurs. Perhaps a friend does not return a call for several hours.
Perhaps a manager offers a critique on a project you worked hard to complete. In a vacuum, these events are neutral. They are simply facts of existence, energy and matter moving through time. But you do not live in a vacuum. You live in a library of memories and learned protective behaviors. Before the event can even settle in your mind, you reach for the script. The script is a set of assumptions based on past pain. If you were abandoned in the past, your script says that silence equals departure. So when the friend does not call you, do not assume they are busy. You assume they are leaving. You assume you are unworthy of their time. The emotional reaction creates a physical sensation of panic and grief. You are not reacting to the present moment. You are reacting to a memory. You have pulled a dusty file from the archives of your history and stamped it onto the present day. This is why time feels circular. You are technically moving forward through the calendar year, but emotionally, you are stationary. You are trapped in the amber of your oldest injuries. When you assume you know the motive of another person, you are rarely seeing them. You are seeing a ghost from your past, wearing their face. You project the character of the villain onto a person who might simply be tired or distracted. The danger of this script is that it demands to be performed. It is not a passive document. It seeks validation. If your script says that you will always be overlooked, you will unconsciously seek out situations where you are ignored. Or worse, you will act with such hostility and suspicion that you force people to pull away from you. You create the very isolation you fear. You hand the other actors their lines and wait for them to recite them back to you. When they finally do,
you feel a twisted sense of satisfaction. You tell yourself that you knew it all along. You tell yourself that your suspicion was intuition. But it was not intuition.
It was a self-fulfilling prophecy, born from the refusal to let go of the script. Consider the sheer exhaustion of this process. It takes an immense amount of energy to maintain these old defenses. You are fighting a war that ended decades ago. You are guarding a fortress that no one is attacking. The loop of assumption keeps you in a state of chronic vigilance. You scan every conversation for hidden insults. You analyze every gesture for signs of rejection. You are the director of a tragedy that you are desperate to stop watching, and yet you keep funding the production. To break the loop, you must first acknowledge that the script exists. You must catch yourself in the act of reading from it. When the wave of familiar emotion rises up, you must pause. You have to ask yourself if you are responding to what is actually happening in the room, or if you are responding to what happened in a room 10 years ago. The script of old wounds is comfortable because it is known. The unknown is terrifying. But the unknown is the only place where a new year can actually begin. Until you drop the script, you are not living a life. You are simply rehearsing a memory. Chapter 4. The Architect of Assumption. We have walked through the phantom sensation of having been here before. We have seen how the costumes change while the actors remain the same. We have read the script of old wounds that dictates your lines before you even speak them. Now we must meet the one responsible for the design. We must meet the builder. This brings us to the most deceptive mechanic of your time loop. It is the reason why you can change your job, move to a new city, or start a new relationship, yet find yourself feeling the exact same disappointment 3 months later. It is not a curse. It is not bad luck. It is a psychological mechanism I call the architect of assumption. To understand the architect, you must first accept a difficult truth about how human beings experience time. We like to believe that we move through the world gathering new information. We think we walk into a room, look around, and then decide how to feel. But that is not what happens. Neuroscience tells us that the brain is an expensive organ to run. It consumes a massive amount of energy. To save power, your mind does not actually process every detail of the present moment. Instead, it predicts what is about to happen based on what happened last time. It assumes. This is the architect. Imagine you are walking into a meeting with your boss, or perhaps a difficult conversation with a partner. Before you even touch the door handle, the architect has already drafted the blueprints for the next hour. It pulls files from the past. It remembers the last time you felt small. It remembers the last time you were criticized. Based on that old data, the architect whispers a command to your nervous system. It tells you to tighten your shoulders. It tells you to prepare for a fight. It tells you that you are about to be misunderstood. Here is where the loop creates itself. You walk into that room believing you are neutral, but you are not. You are already defensive. You are already broadcasting hostility or fear. The other person in the room reads your body language. They sense your tension. In response, they become tense. They become guarded. Their tone shifts to match yours. When they eventually speak a harsh word, you nod internally and think, "I knew it. I knew this would happen." But you did not know it. You built it. This is the treacherous nature of assumption. It is a projector that overlays the past onto the present. You assumed rejection, so you acted in a way that guaranteed rejection. You assumed failure, so you withheld the effort required for success. You assumed the year would be exactly like the last one,
so you made the same choices that led you there. The architect creates a self-fulfilling prophecy.
It creates a closed loop where your beliefs shape your actions shape the reaction of the world, and that reaction confirms your original belief. This is why time feels circular. You are not living in a new year. You are living in a projection of the old one. The danger of the architect is that it prefers efficiency over accuracy. It would rather be right than happy. It is safer for your mind to predict a known misery than to risk an unknown joy. The unknown is dangerous. The unknown requires energy. So the architect uses the bricks of yesterday to build the walls of today. Think about the recurring problems in your life. The argument you have with your spouse that never seems to be resolved. The financial plateau you cannot seem to break. The feeling of stagnation in your career. Ask yourself what you assume will happen before you even attempt to fix these things. Do you assume it is pointless? Do you assume people never change? Do you assume you are not the kind of person who succeeds? Those assumptions are the invisible walls of your time loop. As long as the architect is using the same blueprints, the house will look exactly the same. You cannot build a cathedral if you are working from the plans of a prison. Breaking this cycle requires a moment of radical pause. It requires you to catch the architect at work. The next time you feel that familiar slide into an old emotion, stop. Look at the situation as if you have never seen it before. Strip away the prediction. Ask yourself if you are reacting to what is actually happening right now, or if you are reacting to what you are afraid will happen. The moment you stop assuming the future is the moment you become free to change it. Until then, you are just a builder following old orders, laying the same bricks day after day, wondering why you never seem to leave the house. To leave the loop, you must fire the architect. You must stop predicting and start observing. This is the only way to ensure that next year is actually new, rather than just another echo of the past. Chapter 5. The Comfort of the Cage. We have arrived now at the most unsettling part of our journey together. We have looked at the phantom of déjà vu and examined the costumes you wear to fit the scene. We have read the script of your old wounds and watched the architect build the walls of your reality in the previous chapter. Now we must ask the hardest question of all. If the door is unlocked, why do you stay inside? This is Chapter 5, The Comfort of the Cage. There is a story often told in behavioral psychology about an animal kept in a crate for years. When the crate is finally opened and the animal is ushered into a wide green field, it does not run. It does not explore the horizon. Instead, it circles the exact dimensions of the crate, pressing its body against invisible walls. It has been given freedom, but it chooses the phantom of confinement. You are doing the exact same thing with your time. You say you want a new life. You say you are tired of the same arguments, the same financial stress, and the same emotional burnout. You look at the calendar and hope that this coming year will finally be different. But there is a secret part of you that is terrified of that difference. We must be brutally honest about the nature of this loop. It is not a prison sentence handed down by a cruel warden. It is a sanctuary you built to protect yourself from the unknown. Predictability is the drug of choice for the human mind. The brain is an engine of survival, and to your ancient survival instincts, the unknown is synonymous with death. A known enemy is safer than an unknown friend. A familiar pain is safer than an unfamiliar joy. This is the biological trap that keeps you stuck. Think about the assumption you identified in the last chapter.
Perhaps it is the belief that you are always overlooked. That assumption hurts.
It stings every time you are ignored in a meeting or forgotten by a friend. But notice what else it does. It gives you certainty. You know exactly how to feel. You know the script. You know how to retreat, how to lick your wounds, and how to resent the world. There are no surprises in that pain. It is a cold room, but it is your room, and you know where the furniture is. If you were to drop that assumption tomorrow, you would face a terrifying void. If you are not the person who is always overlooked, then who are you? You would have to speak up. You would have to take up space. You would have to risk rejection rather than assuming it is guaranteed. That is the wilderness outside the cage. This is why you keep repeating the same year. You are not repeating time. You are repeating a safety protocol. You wake up and the morning feels heavy. You assume the day will be a struggle, just like yesterday was. That assumption triggers the chemical cocktail of stress in your bloodstream. Your body tightens. Your patience thins. You snap at a loved one or withdraw into silence. The world reacts to your withdrawal by leaving you alone. And there you have it. The loop closes. You feel isolated, and you tell yourself that you knew this would happen. You feel a strange, grim satisfaction. You were right. The architect has proven his theory. You return to the center of the cage, and you feel safe. It is a tragedy to realize that we often prefer to be right about our suffering than to be wrong and happy. We would rather predict our failure than be surprised by our success. The cage is constructed of these dense, declarative statements. I am anxious. I am unlucky. I am not good with money. I am difficult to love. These are not descriptions of your DNA. They are the iron bars of your enclosure. You hold on to them because without them, you would have to walk out into the open air where there are no walls to lean on. The danger of the loop is not that it hurts. The danger is that it feels comfortable. It requires zero effort to slide back into an old reaction. Gravity pulls you there. It takes tremendous energy to stand still when the trigger hits and refuse to run the old program. When you try to change your life, you are fighting against the inertia of your own identity. You try to start a new habit or a new way of thinking, and your subconscious pulls on the leash. It whispers that it is dangerous to change. It tells you to come back to the cage where you know the rules. So look at your cage today. Walk around the perimeter in your mind. Touch the walls. You must understand that no one is locking you in. There is no mysterious force conspiring to keep you stagnant. There is no destiny written in stone that demands you relive the same frustrations over and over again. The door is standing wide open. The latch was lifted the moment you realized these were just assumptions. But walking out requires you to abandon the identity of the victim. It requires you to abandon the comfort of the known complaint. Leaving the cage feels like dying, because a version of you is dying. The version of you that needs the cage to survive cannot exist outside of it. Let that version go. The air outside is thin and cold and terrifyingly free. But it is the only place where time actually moves forward. It is the only place where a new year can actually begin. Chapter 6. The Loop of Reaction. You look at the calendar and see the numbers changing. You see the seasons turn from green to brown and back to green. You assume that because the earth is moving around the sun, you are moving forward in your life. This is the great deception
of linear time. You believe you are walking a straight line into the future, but emotionally, you are walking in a tight circle. We must now examine the engine that drives this circular motion. It is not the events themselves. The world is chaotic and unpredictable. New things happen to you every day.
You meet new people. You face new challenges. The external world is constantly refreshing itself. The problem is not the input. The problem is the output. The problem is the loop of reaction. Think of your life as a conversation. Life speaks to you through events and circumstances. Then you speak back through your reactions. The reason you feel stuck in the same year is that your replies have become automated. Life asks you a new question, but you give it the same old answer you gave 5 years ago. Let us look at the mechanics of this loop. It happens in a fraction of a second. It is so fast that you usually do not notice it is happening. Something occurs. Perhaps a friend cancels plans at the last minute, or perhaps you receive a critical piece of feedback at work. In that microsecond, your brain demands a template. It does not want to analyze this specific moment as a unique event, because that requires energy and attention. It prefers efficiency. So it searches your archives. It looks for the last time you felt rejected or criticized. It finds a script from your past. It loads the assumption we discussed in the previous chapter, and then it triggers the reaction. Sudden anger, a collapse into self-pity, a sharp retort, a withdrawal into silence. Whatever your go-to reaction is, it fires off like a reflex. You did not choose it in that moment. You recited it. And because you reacted with the same anger or the same fear, you create the same outcome. The friend becomes defensive. The boss loses confidence. The relationship strains. You find yourself sitting in the room feeling exactly the way you felt last year and the year before that. You are effectively haunting your own life. You are a ghost reenacting the tragedies of a previous era. This is why time feels slippery. You are aging biologically, but psychologically, you are frozen in the era where you learned these reactions. If you are 30 years old, but you react to conflict with the same tantrum you used when you were 10, then part of you is still 10 years old. You are repeating the 10th year of your life over and over again while wearing the costume of an adult. We must understand that this is not a mystical curse. There is no external force doom-scrolling your destiny. This is simply the physics of psychology. It is cause and effect. If you touch a hot stove, you pull your hand away. That is a survival reflex. But if you treat an awkward silence like a hot stove, you will pull away from connection every single time. You will isolate yourself. You will confirm your assumption that you are alone, and you will recreate the year of loneliness. The loop of reaction is comfortable because it is familiar, even if the reaction is painful, even if it is anxiety or rage. It feels like home because you know the texture of it. You know how the story ends. There is a strange safety in knowing that you will be rejected or that you will fail. It validates the architect of assumption. It proves you right. But notice the tragedy here. The present moment offered you a chance to improvise. It offered you a blank page. You could have paused. You could have asked a question instead of making an accusation. You could have breathed instead of panicked. You could have broken the loop. Instead, the autopilot took over. The robot inside you pressed the play button on the old track. To escape the repeating year, you must first respect the speed of this loop.
It is faster than your conscious thought. It lives in your nervous system. It lives in the tightness of your shoulders and the pit of your stomach. By the time you think about what you are doing, you have often already done it. The work of breaking this cycle is the work of slowing down time. It is the ability to widen the gap between the stimulus and the response. In that tiny gap lies your freedom.
In that gap lies the difference between reliving the past and creating a future. If you cannot catch the reaction, you cannot change the year. You will simply buy a new calendar, hang it on the wall, and proceed to act out the same old drama on fresh paper. The dates will change, the problems will evolve, but the internal experience of being you will remain perfectly, stubbornly static. We have identified the loop. We see how the assumption fuels the reaction. Now we must look at what keeps this mechanism oiled and running. We must look at the immediate payoff that your brain receives when it indulges in these old habits. We must look at the hidden currency of your stagnation. Chapter 7. The Silent Narrator. We have spent the last 6 chapters examining the stage. We looked at the costumes you wear and the scripts you recite. We analyzed the heavy architecture of your assumptions and the comfortable cage of your daily routine. We even slowed down the film to watch the loop of your emotional reactions. But there is one element remaining. It is the most elusive part of this production, because it is the one thing you never question. It is the voice that has been reading the script to you since you were a child. Imagine walking through a dense forest at twilight. The wind rustles the leaves. To a biologist, this is simply air displacement moving through vegetation. To a lost child, it is the whisper of a monster. To a poet, it is the earth sighing before sleep. The event is identical in all 3 cases. The wind moves the leaves. The objective reality does not change. Yet the emotional experience is entirely different for each person. The fear the child feels is real. The serenity the poet feels is real. But the cause of that feeling is not the wind. The cause is the story they told themselves about the wind. This brings us to the entity living in the back of your mind. We shall call this entity the silent narrator. This narrator is not a demon, and it is not a spirit. It is a biological mechanism. It is a mental function designed to make sense of the world quickly. It looks at the chaos of your day and instantly categorizes it. It labels events as good or bad. It labels people as friends or threats. It labels silence as peace or abandonment. The tragedy of repeating the same year is that your silent narrator has stopped writing new material. It is using a very old template to describe your present life. You might move to a new city. You might start a new job. You might meet entirely new people. But the narrator is lazy. It looks at your new boss and immediately whispers that he looks like the teacher who failed you in high school. It looks at a minor setback in your finances and whispers that you are destined to be poor forever. It looks at a romantic partner withdrawing for a moment of quiet and whispers that you are being rejected just like last time. This is how the loop closes. The events of this year are undoubtedly different from the events of last year. The names have changed. The dates have changed. The specific challenges have changed. But the narration remains exactly the same. The voice in your head is describing a tragedy, so you feel tragic. It describes a struggle, so you feel exhausted. It describes a lonely world, so you feel isolated. You believe this voice is you. That is the great deception. You think that when you hear this internal commentary, it is your own rational observation of the truth. But it is not the truth. It is a habit. It is a reflex. It is a groove worn into a record that has been spinning for decades. Consider the last time you felt a sudden wave of anxiety. What happened immediately before the feeling arrived? Usually there was a trigger, maybe a phone call, or an email, or a look from a stranger. Between that trigger and your anxiety, there was a split second where the silent narrator spoke. It said, "This is dangerous," or it said, "This is proof that I am not enough." You likely did not even hear the sentence. You only felt the aftershock. If you want to stop repeating the same year, you must stop trusting the narrator blindly. You must realize that you are not the voice talking. You are the one listening to the voice. There is a gap between the event and the story. In that gap lies your freedom. When you wake up tomorrow and the day feels heavy before it has even begun, catch the narrator in the act. Listen to what it is saying. It might be saying that today will be hard. It might be saying that you are too tired to cope. It might be saying that nothing matters. Do not fight the voice. Do not argue with it. Just hear it. Acknowledge that it is telling a story, and then recognize that the story is not the same thing as reality. The rain is just water. The silence is just the absence of noise. The delay is just a pause in time. These things have no emotional weight until the silent narrator assigns it to them. By stripping away the narration, you return to the raw data of your life. You begin to see the year for what it actually is. It is a series of neutral moments, waiting for you to decide what they mean. This leads us to the final problem. If we silence the narrator who has been telling us who we are for our entire lives, then what is left? If you are not the story you tell yourself, then who are you? We must now prepare to exit the theater entirely. We must step out of the dark and into the blinding light of the present moment. Chapter 8. The Glitch in the Record. Imagine for a moment that your life is not a timeline stretching linearly from birth to death. Imagine instead that it is a black vinyl record, spinning endlessly on a turntable in a dimly lit room. The music produced by this record is your daily experience. The melody is your prevailing emotion. The rhythm is your routine. You sit in the chair and listen. You believe you are hearing a long and varied symphony with distinct movements and changing tempos. You believe you are moving forward through the song. But if you truly stop and listen closely to the cadence of your days, you will hear a rhythmic ticking sound. Tick, tick, tick. The needle has caught a snag. It keeps popping back to the previous groove. It plays the same 3 measures of music over and over again. This is the phenomenon you have been calling your life. It is not a journey. It is a skip. We often mistake the passage of calendar days for progress. We see the date change on our phones and assume we are moving into a new future. We celebrate New Year's Eve with the assumption that the coming year will be different, simply because it has a different number attached to it. But time is just the turntable. Your psychology is the record, and your reactions are the needle. In the previous chapters, we explored how you carry a script of old wounds
and how you act as the architect of your own assumptions. Now we must look at the mechanics of why this persists. Why does the needle skip back? In audio engineering, a record skips because of a scratch or a piece of deep-seated dust that throws the stylus out of its path. In your psychology, the record skips because the groove of your past reactions is so deep that it is physically difficult for your mind to climb out of it. You encounter a situation that looks new. Perhaps it is a new romantic partner or a new job opportunity. The music starts to change, the melody lifts, you feel hopeful. But then a trigger occurs, a minor conflict arises, a deadline looms. This is the scratch on the vinyl. Your brain instantly recognizes the friction. Instead of navigating over the bump and continuing into a new song of resolution or growth, your mind defaults to the path of least resistance. The needle jumps back. You react exactly as you reacted 5 years ago. You withdraw, or you explode in anger.
Or you procrastinate. Suddenly you are not in the new relationship anymore. You are back in the old dynamic. You are not at the new job. You are back in the old feeling of inadequacy. The year hasn't changed. You have just replayed the chorus of your history. This is the loop of assumption. You assume the outcome will be pain, so you enact the behavior that guarantees pain. The skip creates the very repetition you despise. However, there is good news hidden in this mechanical failure. We call it the glitch. In a digital system, a glitch is an error. But in this analog metaphor, the glitch is your moment of awakening. It is that split second of silence when the needle jumps. It is the jarring noise that interrupts the melody. Most people hate the glitch. They try to ignore it. They turn up the volume to drown out the ticking sound of their own repetitive mistakes. They blame the record player. They blame the manufacturer. They blame the people listening with them. But you must learn to love the glitch. That moment of frustration where you think, "Not this again," is actually your window of opportunity. It is the only time the needle is light enough to be moved. To break the loop, you must become a disruptor of your own frequency. You must introduce a glitch in your own behavior. This is not about positive thinking. This is about physical and neurological intervention. When the needle hits the scratch, you usually feel a surge of familiar chemistry: cortisol, adrenaline, the urge to run or fight. The loop demands you follow the groove. Creating the glitch means doing the precise opposite of your impulse. If your impulse is to scream, you must speak in a whisper. If your impulse is to hide, you must stand in the center of the room. If your impulse is to agree out of fear, you must politely refuse. This action is jarring. It feels wrong. It feels like the music has stopped altogether. This sensation of wrongness is terrifying. It feels unsafe because it is unfamiliar. Your brain will scream that you are making a mistake. It will try to shove you back into the deep, warm groove of your past misery, because at least that misery is predictable. At least you know the words to that sad song. But you must hold the silence. You must endure the pause. By refusing to react in the old way, you are essentially lifting the tone arm of the record player. You are forcing the needle to land in a new groove, one that has not yet been cut. This is why change is so exhausting. You are not just playing music. You are carving a new path into hard vinyl with the weight of your own will. It requires force. It requires precision. And it requires the courage to ruin the old track completely. So as we move toward the end of this examination, Do not look at your repetitive problems as a curse. Look at them as the skip in the record. That ticking sound is a signal. It is telling you exactly where the damage lies. It is telling you exactly where the work must begin. You are not doomed to repeat this year. You are simply stuck in a groove that is too comfortable to leave. It is time to scratch the record. It is time to make a sound you have never heard before. Chapter 9. Walking into the Fog. You have finally repeat this trip with your end of it. You have finally make this part to try to first anywhere of our children. Chapter 9. Walking into the Fog. You have finally commit for it to try to train in the result. Chapter 9. Walking into the Fog. You have finally repeat this fort of them with your end of it. You have finally make this part to try to first anywhere of our children. Chapter 9. Walking into the Fog. You have finally make this part to try to first anywhere of our children. Chapter 9. Walking into the Fog. You have finally make this part to try to train in the result. You have finally make this part to try to first anywhere of our children. Chapter 9. Walking into the Fog. You have finally make this part to try to first anywhere of our children. Chapter 9. Walking into the Fog. You have finally make this part to try to first anywhere of our children. Chapter 9. Walking into the Fog. You have finally make this part to try to first anywhere of our children. Chapter 9. Walking into the Fog. You have finally make this part to try to first anywhere of our children. Chapter 9. Walking into the Fog. You have finally make this part to try to first anywhere of our children. Chapter 9. Walking into the Fog. You have finally make this part to try to first anywhere of our children. Chapter 9. Walking into the Fog. Toward the end of this examination, do not look at your repetitive problems as a curse. Look at them as the skip in the record. Chapter 9. Fog. You have finally heard the glitch in the record. You have seen the scratch on the vinyl surface of your life. You now understand that the arguments you have with your partner are the exact same arguments you had 5 years ago, just with a different face. You know that the sudden, gripping feeling of financial panic is a script you memorized in childhood, and not necessarily a reflection of your bank account. The repetition has been exposed, and the illusion of newness has faded. You are no longer sleepwalking through the loop. Now comes the hardest part. Now you must turn away from the familiar misery and look at the alternative. This is where most people turn back. This is where the gravity of the loop is strongest. We have arrived at Chapter 9, Walking into the Fog. Imagine for a moment that you are standing on a high threshold. Behind you is a room that is on fire. It is hot and smoky and suffocating. The air is toxic and the heat is blistering. However, you know exactly where the door is. You know where the windows are located. You know the layout of the burning room intimately because you have lived there for decades. You know which floorboards creak and which corners are the hottest. You are suffering, but you are oriented. Ahead of you, outside the door, is an open field covered in a thick gray fog. You cannot see your hand in front of your face. You do not know if there are wolves hidden in the white mist, or if there is a cliff edge waiting for your next step, or if there is a paradise of safety. It is a wall of absolute opacity. Most people choose the burning room. They choose the loop. They choose the recurring year. At least in the fire, they know what burns them. In the fog, they know nothing. This brings us to the core mechanism of your recurring timeline. You do not repeat the past because you enjoy it. You do not repeat the same year because you are stupid or broken. You repeat it because your brain is a survival engine that is terrified of the unknown. The unknown is the fog. To your primitive survival instincts, the fog represents death. If you cannot predict what is coming, you cannot prepare for it. So your mind performs a desperate magic trick. It projects the past onto the fog like a film projector. This is why you sabotage relationships when they are going well. Peace feels like the fog. When there is no conflict, you cannot see the threats. You do not know how to protect yourself against a partner who is simply kind. The silence creates a spike of anxiety. Your brain screams that something is wrong because the environment does not match your internal map of danger. So you create a problem. You pick a fight over dirty dishes. You look for a hidden insult in a compliment.
You project the betrayal of your ex onto the face of your current partner. Suddenly the fog clears. There is the conflict. There is the pain. You feel a strange and twisted sense of relief. It sounds insane to say that pain brings relief, but it does. The pain confirms that you were right. It proves that the world is dangerous and that you are safe in your cynical fortress. You have successfully turned the unknown future into the known past. You are back in the burning room, but at least you know where you are. Walking into the fog means suppressing that projector. It means refusing to fill the empty space with old ghosts. It requires a profound level of courage because you must be willing to feel defenseless. You must be willing to be naive. When you walk into the fog, you are choosing to suspend judgment. You meet a new person, and you feel the urge to categorize them immediately. You want to label them as a user, or a narcissist, or a savior. You want to know the end of the story before the first page is turned. To break the loop, you must put down the pen. You must let the person be who they are, moment by moment. You must let the day unfold without deciding in advance that it will be a bad day. This state of suspension is uncomfortable. It feels like freefall. Your mind will scream at you. It will tell you that you are being careless. It will tell you that you are letting your guard down, and that you will look foolish when the inevitable disaster strikes. It will demand that you make an assumption just so it can feel oriented again. You must learn to tolerate this vertigo. The fog is not empty space. The fog is pure potential. The only reason your years look identical is because you have been painting over the canvas of the present with the colors of the past. If you stop painting, the picture reveals itself. You might find that the person you feared is actually safe. You might find that the opportunity you dismissed is actually viable. But you will never know these things if you overwrite them with your assumptions before you even experience them. Real change requires a period of blindness. You have to be willing to not know who you are without your trauma. You have to be willing to not know how the day ends. You have to be willing to stand in the mist of uncertainty and breathe the air without hyperventilating. This is the only way to exit the cage. As you step forward, the fog does not clear all at once. It clears only for the step you are currently taking. You learn to trust your ability to handle the moment as it arrives, rather than preparing for a catastrophe that has not happened. This is how you stop the repetition. You stop predicting the rain, and you simply check the sky. The loop is a closed circle. The fog is an open horizon. One is safe but suffocating. The other is terrifying but free. You have spent enough time in the burning room. It is time to step out into the cool gray air and let the world show you what it actually is, rather than what you fear it to be. Chapter 10. The Death of the Old Year. You have walked into the fog. You have stepped away from the sharp edges of certainty and entered the space where nothing is yet written. This is where the work begins. But there is a heavy realization waiting for you here in the mist. You cannot build a new life while you are still clutching the corpse of the old one. We tend to think of a year as a measurement of time. We see it as the earth completing a revolution around the sun. We mark it with calendars and celebrations and resolutions that fade by February. But in the landscape of the mind, a year is not a unit of time. It is a unit of identity. The old year is not a date on a page. The old year is you. It is the version of you that reacted to betrayal with isolation. It is the version of you that responded to opportunity with hesitation. It is the collection of every assumption you made about what you deserve and what is possible. As long as that version of you survives, the loop continues. The calendar might say it is a new era, but your psychology is still living in the past. You are simply dragging the same exhausted character onto a new stage. This is the hardest part of the process. To break the loop, you must allow the old year to die. And I do not mean this metaphorically, in a gentle or passive way. I mean, you must actively withdraw the life force from your old identity. You must stop feeding it. Consider how much energy you spend maintaining the story of who you are. You wake up and immediately download the files of your past. You remember your grievances. You recall your limitations. You check the mental script to see how you are supposed to feel about your job or your relationship or your bank account. You put on the costume of the person who struggled through last year. You do this because it is safe. Even if the costume is heavy and suffocating, it fits. It is yours. To let the old year die feels dangerous. It feels like a loss of self. If you are not the person who was hurt back then, who are you? If you are not the person who always fails at this specific challenge, who are you? The silence that follows that question is terrifying. It is the void. Most people will choose a familiar misery over an empty void. They will choose to repeat the same year for the 10th time rather than face the emptiness of not knowing who they are this morning. But you have come this far. You have seen the glitch in the record. You have recognized that your reality is built on a foundation of assumption. Now you must stand over that foundation and let it crack. The death of the old year requires a funeral for your assumptions. You have to look at your conviction that you are not good enough, and you have to let it go cold. You have to look at your belief that people always leave, and you have to bury it.
You must look at the narrative that says life is a struggle, and you must stop breathing life into it. This is a physical and psychological process. When the old impulse rises up to complain or to fear or to judge, you must catch it. You must recognize it as a ghost. It is a reflex from a dead year. It has no power here in the fog, unless you give it power. You have to practice the discipline of indifference toward your old patterns. When the old anxiety knocks on the door, you do not answer it. You do not fight it, because fighting it makes it real. You simply acknowledge that it belongs to a timeline that no longer exists. You are starving the beast. The neural pathways that formed the loop are thick and well-traveled. They are highways in your brain. By refusing to travel them, you are letting the grass grow over the road. You are letting the asphalt crack. You are letting nature reclaim the space. This is why you feel tired. This is why change feels like grief.
You are mourning the loss of your own history. You are saying goodbye to the comfort of being a victim. You are saying goodbye to the righteous anger of being misunderstood. You are laying down the weapons you used to defend your limitations. It is a quiet death. There is no fanfare. There is just you, standing in the fog, realizing that you do not need to carry those heavy bags anymore. You drop them. You hear them hit the ground, and then you walk away. You do not look back. You do not check to see if they are still there. You leave the old year where it belongs, in the silence of the past. Now you are lighter. Now you are empty. And only because you are empty can you finally be filled with something new. The loop is broken, not because you fought it, but because you left the person who was running in circles behind you. You are free now. The question is, what will you do with this silence? With the first breath, the first breath. Silence is a first breath. Silence is protected by 28:7 from a second face. The nation that no deal was ballated who had been son of it be done. Silence is just the first breath. Sometime you made themselves. The first breath. The first breath is because you hear the past, but the first breath is brought from you to finally. You made them that the first breath that running in circles. The rope is broken, the first breath. The first breath is because you hear the past. The first breath is be done. The first breath is been finally. The first breath is broken to finally you make them. You actually work the silence pressed when you saw who them was doing the process. The old year is medley to say this move, the first breath. Center you don't have. The first breath is blowth the quiet. The first breath is responsive. The first breath is responsive. Center. Center life that responsive. The first breath is been finally. The first breath is responsive by the ability. You were try to break pursued by not more. He called the living the confidence of responsive. They growth and work the time to help and happened. They follow the confidence with just breath. The usual that wasn't see. They take it in what of there. The visible that follows doing. And they perform to the drop and the come. The visible that lips just breath is looking. The first breath is not upset to make this move. The first breath is accepted. The old prophet soon in his black and the inside campus. The first breath is blowth discuss him, which rates the physical continue to be table that the inside campus. The first breath is responsive. The first breath is accepted into. The first breath is become from. They follow the known at the different time of their loop. Sent themselves distance that they been. These are the way as don't have to just for this too. The old no more that prophet soon in his black. The old no more that wasn't see, and that says the come. The first breath is responsive. They moved by great individual that wasn't see. The old no more that wasn't see, and that says the come. The first breath is responsive. The old no more that wasn't see, and that says the come. The old no more that wasn't see, and that says the come. The old no more that wasn't see, and that says the come. The first breath is responsive. They follow the no one at the different time of their loop. The old no more that wasn't see,
and that says the come. The old no more that wasn't see. They follow the gate individual that wasn't see, and that says the come. The old no more that wasn't see, and that says the come. The old no more that wasn't see, and that says the come. The old no more that wasn't see, and that says the come. The old no more that wasn't see, and that says the come. The old no more that wasn't see, and that says the come. What letting first breath. Silence is a heavy thing to carry. You have just walked away from the wreckage of the old year. You have identified the phantom of déjà vu, and you have stripped off the costume that defined you for so long. You have acknowledged that the script of old wounds was written by a version of you that no longer exists. You have watched the death of the old year, and now you are standing in the aftermath. This is the void. Most people panic here. They panic because the silence of the void feels like death. The brain is a prediction machine that craves certainty above all else. It would rather predict a painful future than endure an uncertain one. So when you finally manage to stop the loop and silence the old narrator, you are left with a terrifying quiet. There is no script to read. There are no cues to follow. This is where the relapse happens. This is the moment where the smoker reaches for the cigarette, not because they want the nicotine, but because they do not know what to do with their hands. This is where you reach for the old anxiety, not because there is a threat, but because the anxiety feels like home. You must resist this urge to fill the silence. This chapter is about the first breath you take as a free agent. It is about the intake of air that belongs solely to the present moment. Consider the mechanics of breathing. Usually, it is automatic. It happens in the background while you are busy reacting to traffic or arguing with someone in your head. It is a shallow, rhythmic survival mechanism. But the first breath of a new life is different. It is conscious. It is deliberate. When you inhale now, you are not just pulling in oxygen. You are pulling in the raw, unformed potential of the immediate present. You are refusing to contaminate this air with the stale exhaust of yesterday. The loop of assumption works like a filter. In the past, every time you took a breath, you immediately filtered it through your expectations. You assumed the day would be hard, so the breath felt heavy. You assumed you were lonely, so the breath felt cold. You assumed you were a failure, so the breath felt short. Now you remove the filter. You take a breath, and you observe it, without attaching a story to it. You feel the cold air enter your nose, and the warm air leave your mouth. That is all. There is no narrative attached to the oxygen. There is no tragedy in the carbon dioxide. It is just biology functioning in the now. This sounds simple, but it is the hardest thing you will ever do. Your mind will scream at you to assume something. It will demand that you label this moment. It will say that you are bored, or scared, or hopeful, or tired. It will try to hand you a page from the old script just so it has something to read. You must look at that thought and let it pass without grabbing it. This is the discipline of the first breath. It is the practice of expanding the gap between the stimulus and your response. In the old loop, something happened and you reacted instantly. A criticism led to shame. A delay led to anger. A silence led to insecurity. The reaction was fused to the event. The first breath breaks that fusion. It inserts a wedge of time between the world and your mind. When the criticism comes, you take a breath. In that pause, you realize that the shame is optional. When the delay happens, you take a breath. In that pause, you see that the anger is just a habit. This is how you stop repeating the same year. You stop repeating the same reactions. You cannot control the events of the coming year. There will be loss and there will be gain. There will be noise and there will be quiet. The physical world operates on chains of cause and effect that are largely outside of your command. But the loop is not built of events. The loop is built of your assumptions about those events. So, as you stand here in the silence of the new chapter, do not rush to start running. Do not rush to set goals or make resolutions or declare who you are going to be. Just stand there. Feel the terror of the blank page and do not write on it yet. Let the silence lengthen. Let the uncertainty sit in the room with you. Teach your nervous system that it is safe to not know what happens next. Take a deep breath. Hold it. Feel the potential in your lungs. This air has never been breathed before. This moment has never happened before. If you can hold this state of non-assumption for 10 seconds, you have broken the loop for 10 seconds. If you can hold it for a minute, you have broken it for a minute. This is how the new year begins, not with a shout and not with a party. It begins with the first honest breath of a mind that has decided to stop predicting the past. Exhale the old story. Inhale the reality of now. You are awake. And for the first time in a long time, the record is not skipping. The needle has moved to a new groove. Now we begin. Epilogue: The linear path. You have finally stepped off the carousel. That haunting sense of déjà vu was never a prophecy of the future. It was merely a memory of the past playing out in real time. For years, you believed time was a straight line pulling you forward. But in truth, it was a circle, forged by your own predictable reactions. Now that you have silenced the narrator and disrupted the glitch, you can finally see the road ahead. This is the linear path. It is not paved with magic or grand destiny. It is built stone by stone through the mundane friction of making a new choice when the old anger rises. It is the quiet discipline of pausing when you used to scream. You are not a god rewriting the cosmos. You are simply a person who has decided to stop reading from the old script. The year ahead will finally look different than the one behind you, because for the first time, you are actually walking forward. Welcome to your first real year.